Hi, my name is Theon Freeman, and I am the head of community here at Minerva. I have the pleasure of introducing some wonderful people today, particularly Maranda Dziekonski, who will be interviewed by Peter Crysdale. And so Miranda is the Chief Customer Officer at Swiftly. She has over 20 years of experience both working in and building world-class operations. She has extensive experience building and scaling teams in early and mid-stage startups and has been a part of not one, not two, but three companies with successful exits and one unicorn. Her specialties are leadership management coaching, customer success, renewals management, implementations, customer tech support, contact centers, sales, and various other teams and operations. Miranda has been honored by various organizations as a top 50 customer success influencer for 2022 and 2021, top 25 customer success influencer for 2021, top 100 success strategist in 2017-2018, and sits on numerous boards and is on the advisory board for the University of San Francisco's Customer Success and Insights MBA program. In her spare time, Miranda hosts a podcast called From There to Here that focuses on personal and professional journeys. And we'll be hearing more about that. And finally, we have Peter Crysdale, who's one of the founding team members at Minerva. And Minerva lets you create personalized interactive guides for your clients and embed them in the flow of work. Now, as we particularly focus on customer success, our goal is to help improve client communication. And we felt it necessary to bring everyone here together because, again, there aren't enough opportunities to meet and learn from each other. So here we are. I'm glad that you're here, and I hope that you get a lot of value out of today's event. Now, immediately following this event, we'll be in Kumo space. So I'll drop the link, and that's where we'll be doing our virtual networking. With that, I'll pass it over to Peter.
All right, yes, thank you, Theon. And if you want to stick around after this in about 25 minutes, as Theon was just saying, there's going to be an opportunity really to meet each other. That's the Kumo space platform that we're going to use. And so if you want to meet your fellow customer success folks, then please do make that transition. And Theon just dropped the link in the chat. Miranda, thank you so much for joining us. According to Chris Jones, you are a CS superstar.
Thank you. When you guys were reading out my bio, I was slightly embarrassed and thought, okay, we need to take off some of the little things there, make it a little shorter. It just sounded a little ridiculous, and it's completely against my ethos. I'm a pretty laid back person and not the kind of person that would put like PMP and but after my titles. I'm like, okay, I got to rethink that bio. But yeah.
And yet you have a variety of customer success experiences, and you were really you've been in customer success much longer than most people. Customer success has really started to blow up. So would love to just start a little bit with your background, but how did you find your way to customer success?
Yeah, so first things first, I was a very young single mom. I'll just share a little bit about my personal side that kind of brought me to where I am today. I was a very young single mom. I got married almost fresh out of high school, worked at a factory running a screw gun. As we do in rural Michigan, when you have a couple of career paths to choose from, which is usually corrections or factories. So fresh out of high school, I went and got the job working at Frigidaire and was making actually really good money. I was like, okay, this is cool. I could do this. And then I took a job. So it's from 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. I was working in the factory, and then 6 p.m. to midnight, I took a job working at a call center for Amway. And I'm like, okay, maybe the factory life isn't the life for me. I really like talking to people. It prompted this desire for me to want to do more and kind of set me on this journey of trying to figure out how do I double down on this, professional world, professional life. I did get married shortly thereafter and had a son and went through a divorce when I was pregnant, and then put myself through school with a child while working full time. So don't suggest it, but now I'm going to be 43. My son is turning 21 in March. Like, hey, I'm 43 and I'm still young and my child is gone. I'm an empty nester. So I have, a lot of time on my hands, and that's where I give back into customer success. So yeah, that's just a little about me, a bit about me personally. You mentioned a podcast. I just launched it a couple of weeks ago. It came from an idea I had when I took some time off over the holidays. I started thinking about, titles and the perspective and perception people have on folks with titles that, wow, this is unreachable, this is unobtainable, and they don't see or we don't usually share about all the hardships or the journey that it took to get us there. So I wanted to do something a little different and kind of just like hopefully be like the great equalizer where folks know that we all have unique journeys and unique paths, regardless of our titles. And like that should be celebrated and normalized to make it, make titles and journeys and paths feel more inclusive. So that's my goal with the podcast that I've launched, and I've had some amazing conversations. I have probably 8 podcasts complete, ready to be released, but I'm just waiting to get them out there. And over 150 folks lined up to talk to me about their own personal journeys. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and my path. I've now been part of 7 startups. I have had 3 successful exits, which is just unheard of, I think. I've had, Lending Club, which was a unicorn IPO. HelloSign was acquired by Dropbox. Castlight Health had an IPO shortly after I joined. So I'm just really fortunate and feel very lucky to be where I am. But I've also had companies that have failed. I was the COO of a tech company that Series A did not convert, and we did not make it. And that is also part of my journey and part of my path. So it's, I've had failures, I've had successes, but in the end, they're all great learning lessons.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you were to say that you learned more from not raising that Series A than from some of your other experiences.
Understatement of the Friday. So, absolutely.
Really incredible. And I know you've shared some other aspects of your personal story with me in the past. I'm sure we could spend an entire interview, probably a few hours just there.
Yeah.
But would love to hear, when did you first hear the phrase customer success? When did you start to think of yourself as a customer success person?
Well, probably in the last 10 years, actually. Even though, probably when I was 22, 23-ish, I got my first job actually managing a portfolio. And if I think back, what I was doing was customer success. I managed a pretty high dollar value portfolio in a company that I worked at for 9 years in Michigan. And so I think back and I'm like, wow, I was actually doing customer success then, except it was called, services or relationship management or account manager, or something else, right? So when I first moved to San Francisco area, I started hearing this thing called customer success. And how I heard the term customer success was I was trying to meet people and I was going to all these meetups, these professional meetups, and I'm like, customer success, what the heck is this? And it was probably 10 years ago, and I'm like, oh, I've been doing this for years, but we didn't call it customer success. So
yeah, what do you think defines that phrase or makes the idea of customer success unique to past versions, relationship management, account management?
I think the concept itself is just powerful for companies and organizations. I think that thinking about the success of a customer, it was a different and unique thing 10, 15 years ago. I don't think we thought about that before. I do think it was birthed, we all know this, out of the subscription economy, where, acquiring customers, you can get people on your platform and that was easy enough, but keeping them wasn't. And initially it was, oh gosh, we have a problem. People are leaving. We need somebody to kind of, man the hen house, for lack of a better term. And then we started shifting and evolving and seeing that there was a lot of power in this position. Not only, we've evolved from being just considered or viewed upon as like churn busters, and now are like a key business strategy. Like in 2020, I talk fondly upon this, but 2020 was a terrible year for many people. in many businesses, I ended the year with 116% net retention. And that's something I'm very proud of, because we work with public transit, big data for public transit at my company, and public transit was hit super hard. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
yeah, well, it's perfect, because let's fast forward to present day. Customer success has really blown up, and there are tons of people looking to now either level up in customer success or find their first job in customer success. Wonder if you can actually talk a little bit more about your current company and the current state of things, and some of your more recent observations in the area.
Yeah. So one, I have people that reach out to me all the time, asking, how do I get into customer success, or how do I make this shift from, the trend I'm seeing right now is education. I'm seeing a ton of folks that are moving from the education space over to customer success. And yeah, it is interesting. And it's actually really cool, because I think teachers or folks that are in the education sector would make great customer success managers. So I'm super, excited about that. But so first things first, if you are somebody that wants to move into customer success or get into customer success, you got to do some self-discovery and figure out what kind of customer success do you want to do, or what kind of customer success should you do based on the different types of customer success and your natural skill sets. And I always talk to folks about making a roadmap, like a career roadmap. So if you have a goal, you want to be an enterprise CSM, go out and read job descriptions, interview enterprise customer success managers at various companies, reach out to folks on LinkedIn. We're a very friendly community. Ask them, what do you do in your day-to-day? What are, some of the things that make you successful? What metrics are you measured to? Back into that and figure out, you're here, you want to be here, and then create yourself a learning roadmap or a learning plan. The trend is right now, it's a hot hiring market. It's also an employee market. So for folks that are, are savvy, are great at networking, are constantly looking to improve and grow and build their skill sets, the possibility to break in is better now than it ever has been. Employers right now are just struggling to hire, struggling to retain. So it's the time to get in if you want to get in. So you got to get out there, be creative, make yourself top of mind. And how you do that is, quite frankly, with me, how people make themselves top of mind is they interact with me on LinkedIn. I mean, my LinkedIn is just filled with people that I've never met in person, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen a post from somebody that I've never met, but they're in the customer success field. And somebody asked me, hey, do you know somebody that does A, B, or C? And I'm like, you know what? Yes, I know so-and-so. And I connect the two and I put the two dots together. I think that's a big thing in customer success right now.
From what I've seen, the customer success community of professionals is extremely active on LinkedIn. In a lot of different ways, maybe not even necessarily posting every day as much as just trying to stay connected to each other, much like we're hoping these events do. Actually getting to meet each other, get to know each other, and share information across different companies. I'm interested to dig in because you said what type of customer success someone might be interested in. I wonder if you can break that down for a little, for us. What do you see as the different types of customer success?
Yeah, so just think about the tools and products you use every day. And I'll just name a few that I use. Instagram. I love my Instagram. I love it so much that I actually have like 3 or 4 Instagrams. Just to be honest, I have one for my dog, and one for my photography, and one that's just private for me and my family, right? So Instagram, I use that all the time. I use my email, I use Slack, I use Gainsight, I use LinkedIn. The change management required for me to be successful or create a habit on Instagram, on LinkedIn, is very different than what is required to make me successful on Gainsight, on Slack. Slack now is becoming a business tool. It's just very different motions. That doesn't mean there aren't customer success managers behind the scenes thinking, how do you make someone adapt or adopt Instagram more? I'm sure there is. So it's a very different motion. Do you want to be a customer success manager that works behind the scenes using data and tools and, human behavior road mapping and all of that type of stuff, and then thinking through how folks interact with your product? Or do you want to be a customer success manager that manages a higher portfolio of accounts, that's worth maybe, more dollars, and requires a different type of motion for change management? Our product at Swiftly, we're a big data platform for public transit. It's pretty technical in nature, and it requires pretty high touch. Our customer base is, on average, everywhere from, 140K on average up to, 1.1, 1.2 million a year. It's a very different motion. So folks have to think about, how do they expand the integration within an organization? How do you think about change management? How do you think about return on investment and goals and all of that? Very different. So there's everything in between as well. I worked at HelloSign, and HelloSign is the type of product that requires both. You have the portfolio management, and then you also have the behind the scenes kind of behavioral things. How do you get somebody to pass the toothbrush test, which is like the creme de la creme? Like, they have to log in or use your product twice a day, because that creates habits and stickiness, right?
Yeah.
Toothbrush test, everything in between. And for some of us, it's 3 times a day, but most it's 2 times a day. Let's be real with each other.
Yeah. So you're describing this spectrum of how data driven are you versus how relationship driven are you, and then different companies might sit on that spectrum in different places.
Exactly. But I do want to call out, even if you're more on the relationship driven side, I expect you to be data driven, period. I expect you to be able to think, with data, use data to help inform decisions and help you get to a more proactive state, to anticipate needs, to anticipate, churn, anticipate whatever. I expect you to be very data driven across the entire spectrum. It's just a different motion on how you use that data.
Yeah, well, that's great. Let's dig a little bit deeper into your own slice or view of the current Great Resignation and the employee-driven market right now. How big is your team right now?
What are we? 17. 17 in customer success, I think. And I say I think because we just had a bunch of new people start, and I can't keep count anymore. I know when I open up our CS org team meeting, there's a lot of boxes now. So our company is
a lot of transition recently.
Yeah. And our company is, I think we're between like 90 to 95. And for full transparency, up until, November, I was not just the chief customer officer, I was also the chief people officer. So I ran all of HR for the last 2.5 years there as well. And thank goodness we have a new chief people officer that starts on Monday. We brought a contractor in, November, to kind of relieve me a little bit, because I was working 60, 70-hour weeks. I was just tired. So
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, that's about where we are.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so you mentioned data driven, and as part of the RSVP process, some people submitted questions as they RSVP to the event. One of them was talking about the ROI of customer success. How do you quantify to the rest of the organization the purpose of customer success and the impact of the customer success organization? Would love to dig in with you a little bit more deeply on that. I think some people here may even be in a place where, their company says, well, customer success is an afterthought, or customer success is just a thing that we have to do because we have to, we have to have some ongoing relationship, but it's not necessarily driving the business. So we'd love to hear a little bit of your perspective.
Well, first of all, the advice I give to folks is when you're interviewing and looking at companies to join, first things first, if you are joining a company that is not bought into the value of customer success, it's always going to be an uphill battle for you to constantly have to be proving why you're there and what the value is. And I personally don't advise folks to join those types of organizations because it's exhausting. And it actually breaks my heart that here we are in 2022 and we're still having to, to talk about this to, leadership. But I know it's out there. So a couple of things I've done in the past, or, when I've advised companies is one, do an A/B test. So run the stats on a managed portfolio versus a not managed portfolio. So try to create a portfolio that's almost the same, and then show the value that you can get out of a customer success manager on the managed portfolio. Some of the stats I've seen in the past, and I did this actually at HelloSign back in the day, we had 50% greater upsells, and we reduced the churn from, it was right around, believe it or not, like on an unmanaged portfolio, it was like 15%, and we reduced it down to less than 3%. So, nothing proves more the value of customer success than numbers. So figure out what those numbers are for your particular company, and then how you're going to back into it to prove the value. Net retention, gross renewal. NPS is great. It's a sentiment metric. And I know there's a lot of controversy right now, like, oh, should we throw NPS out out the window? I'm seeing this all the time. No, keep NPS. It's more about the data and the trend. So leverage that as well to tell your story of the changes you're making around customer experience. And then I also really love there's a chart I've seen passed around quite a bit that you show how reducing churn by 1% increases the overall lifetime value of a customer and the overall valuation of a company. Figure out how to back into that to show the company that even if, it may not sound nominal that if I reduce 1% churn, but 1% on $10 million over a 10-year period, when you put that on a graph or a chart, that's pretty significant. It adds up.
Yeah, you're talking about like a compounding interest type graph.
Absolutely, 100%. Another thing folks can leverage is take a look at your cost of acquisition and how long it takes for your customer to actually pay you back for that cost of acquisition. Sometimes if you have a higher cost of acquisition, that alone proves the value and ROI for a customer success manager. If you retain a customer for 12 or 18 months, if it's a managed portfolio versus 6, and it takes 3 or 6 months for you to make back that cost of acquisition, like, you don't have to be a genius to look at the numbers and say, this is worth the investment, right? There's a lot of other things like that you can do, but it's very dependent on your business model, your product, your cost of acquisition, your cost of goods sold, all your margins and all that stuff. But know your numbers, dig in, get to know it, be very intimately involved in it, and link arms with your sales leader. They know their numbers. They have, a good sales leader can say every sales or account executive I hire, I'm going to print X amount of dollars. Link arms and figure out how to do that for your CS organization.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. And it's really about framing it for your company, customer success as a profit center, rather than customer success as an afterthought or something that's just, a required aspect of the business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. Well, I also wanted to dig in, and that we're actually going to be at the end of time pretty soon. But wanted to, I know, so fast. Yeah. But we do want to make sure that we're creating that networking space as well for folks. But wanted to get in a little bit more to this challenge between wanting to provide a personal relationship and really feel like you are the champion of each of your clients, but also be able to handle a portfolio at scale. How do you think about this tension between trying to offer the most personalized experience possible, but trying to do that maybe for 30, 40, 50 clients maybe.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think that leaders need to be leveraging segmentation tools and stuff like that as much as possible. I saw somebody post a comment about, I think, customer or CS enablement or education. So one, I saw a post by Jay Nathan the other day that I thought was pretty awesome, and it prompted a lot of thought in me. So I'll kind of go down this path while we're wrapping up here. Don't put the complete ownership on your customer success managers to provide that personal experience. Like, it's a company responsibility, not just the CSM responsibility. If you give the CSM a portfolio of, $2 or $3 million or 40 or 50 customers, and then tell them go be BFFs with everyone, you're setting them up for failure. So think about the different levels and layers and levers you have. So everything from, customer education to, this kind of falls under that bucket, but like webinars and community and all of those things that make the customer feel like the company is really hearing them and giving them attention, that helps, across the org. It's an uphill battle if the CSM is operating alone in this. Customer success never succeeds in a silo. And this 100% speaks to that. We can't do it on our own. So link arms with your product partners, link arms with your marketing partners, link arms with education, enablement, whatever you can do. But it's a company-owned effort.
Absolutely. And then Tessa was just asking something related in the chat. Have you seen any innovations recently in scaling customer success, or the things other than emails and webinars that can be done? I'll throw my hat in the ring for Minerva. Would love to talk to anyone about Minerva because we do respond to that directly. But Miranda, do you have any other thoughts that come up around how do we get beyond emails and webinars?
Yeah. And did you plant this person in the audience? Because yes, Minerva.
No.
Minerva, definitely. There are a lot of tools out there, folks. You just have to understand what your customers need and what experience you can afford versus what experience they need to be successful. There's got to be a balance in between. I know a lot of folks are starting to think through the leveraging AI in app messaging. There's just so much out there right now. AI, I think, is going to be big in the next year or two. I've started seeing more and more AI companies pop up. And they're getting smarter and smarter. It's not like the good old days of the answer bot and you knew you were chatting with somebody and you're like, you're not a real person, are you? Tell me, what color is the sky? So, but yeah, definitely leveraging tools like Minerva and, the AI, and there's so much though. We could probably do a whole 30 minutes just talking about those types of tools.
Yeah, one of the things we're thinking more about with Minerva is how to understand all the contextual signals to see what someone's trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And if we can get some kind of communication in the flow of work where they say, oh, I was trying to figure out how to accomplish X within the platform, and here's a nice helpful tidbit in that moment that helps me get to my destination.
Absolutely.
And we definitely believe that's very much the future of where things are going, so that you don't, you have this larger relationship management piece, but then a lot of those little questions where I don't understand how to do this, don't understand how to do that, are actually taken up by the software itself. Yeah.
Wonderful. And for those that are left, I just want to call out, I see people are starting to hop over already. I just want to call out, thank you for having me here. And for those that I'm not connected with on LinkedIn, please feel free to reach out to me. I love interacting with folks from the CS community on LinkedIn. So
I love it. This is such a great conversation. Thank you everyone for joining us. Again, Miranda, so grateful for this. I even dropped in there, I was trying to tease if anyone wanted part 2 of this conversation. Full disclaimer, I didn't ask Miranda as of yet. So folks, so we'll talk about that later. But again, we're gonna head over to Kumo Space for our networking portion. I've dropped a link in the chat, and so I'll see you there. And Peter is going to stay back and answer any questions that you might have for now. And I will see you very shortly. Let me just drop that one more time in the chat. and we'll go from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.